They stopped the fight in round 2, not for blood but for rebellion. It was the championship semi-finals. He had the crowd on its feet, his opponent wobbling, gasping. But when the bell rang and cameras zoomed in, he didn't raise his gloves. He raised a protest sign, handwritten, sweat-stained, trembling in his fingers. A single phrase. This sport is rigged. Fighters die poor while they get rich. Security rushed in. The broadcast cut to black. By midnight, his license was revoked. By dawn, his name was erased from the rankings. No one knew where he went. Some said he fled overseas. Others claimed he died in a street brawl. But 8 years later, in a tournament aired worldwide, a mysterious fighter named Orion Vale steps into the ring. Same stance, same footwork, same fire behind the eyes. No one knows it yet, but the man they buried has come back to finish what they tried to silence. Stay with this story because when the mask comes off, the world won't know whether to cheer or riot. They called him Jace the Pulse. Navarro, quick on his feet, always calm between strikes, like he could hear the heartbeat of a fight before it exploded. At 22, he wasn't just promising. He was poetry in gloves. The crowd adored him. The sponsors paraded him. But behind the scenes, Jace was suffocating. Even before the semi-finals, he'd begun asking questions. Why were injured fighters paid so little? Why were matchups reshuffled at the last minute, always favoring the Federation's golden boys? Why did his coach Manny suddenly go silent when Jace mentioned payouts not adding up? "Keep your head down, Manny," whispered one night, hands trembling as he taped Jace's wrists. This game, it eats the loud ones. But Jace wasn't built for silence, and when he raised that cardboard sign after knocking down a favored fighter, it wasn't impulsive. It was the end of a quiet war. They yanked him from the ring like a criminal. A voice over the loudspeaker announced his disqualification. The crowd, stunned into a hush, rippled with confusion. And in that moment, blinking under the lights, Jace realized they'd planned for this. The cameras cut. Security was waiting. The Federation's president, arms crossed in the wings, nodded once. He never even got to change out of his trunks. They handed him a jacket, shoved him through a back hallway, and told him, "You'll never fight in this country again." He didn't beg, didn't shout. He just walked out the service exit, barefoot, adrenaline still in his veins, and disappeared. 3 weeks later, sports panels debated his breakdown. A few journalists tried to find him. None succeeded. Only one article lingered, a blog post by a junior reporter named Raina Cruz. Navarro didn't snap. He stood up. Maybe we should start asking why. It got 12 shares before it was buried. Jace resurfaced in a basement gym in New Jersey 6 months later, under a different name. Hair shaved close. No flair, no flash. He boxed nobodies, lost a few fights on purpose, learned to unlearn himself. He did dishes for gym fees, slept on old mats, watched televised matches alone, half-drunk, yelling advice that echoed off the walls. He never said his name. Not once. But his body remembered the rhythm, the pivot, the timing. Muscle memory outlasted fame. One night, 3 years into exile, he got jumped outside a Brooklyn bar. 3 guys, drunk, rowdy, didn't like his face. They didn't see it coming. The way he dropped the first one with a liver shot, clean silent. The second stumbled, already backing away. The third, he ran. The bouncer, a massive wall of a man, had been watching. Afterwards, he just handed Jace a napkin with a name on it. Guy in Newark runs a different kind of place. You want to fight again, not legally. He'll know what to do. Jace stared at the name for a long time. Then he pocketed it and walked away. That's how he met Gloria. The place wasn't much. A windowless warehouse with chain-link cages instead of rings. No rules, just tape sweat and shadows. She owned the building, widow of an ex-fighter, kept the books, cleaned the blood. Gloria didn't ask questions, but she watched. He registered under Orion Vale. She raised an eyebrow. Sounds like a gladiator. Jace shrugged. Sounds forgotten. He fought twice a week, never smiled, never lingered. He kept his head low and his guard high. But one night, as she stitched a gash above his brow, Gloria finally said, "You fight like a man who used to mean something." He looked at her. Really looked for the first time. Everyone used to mean something, he said. She smiled softly, then handed him an ice pack and said, "Come by tomorrow." I'll show you the tapes. Real ones. From the glory days. He almost didn't, but he did. And for the first time in years, he let himself remember what it felt like to belong to something bigger than a lie. Gloria's office sat behind the ring, a converted equipment room cluttered with old VHS tapes, newspaper clippings, and a flickering CRT television. The walls were yellowed with age, and the air always smelled faintly of rubbing alcohol and dust. She'd made space for a second chair. "Sit," she said, sliding in a tape with worn labeling. 98 Eastern Circuit Finals. That's my husband, third round. He won with a busted rib and a busted marriage. Jace leaned back one hand, cradling a cup of bitter coffee she'd forced on him. The screen buzzed to life, static clearing, to reveal a younger man, wiry, intense, ducking under a savage hook and launching an uppercut that sent his opponent stumbling. The room was quiet as the fight unfolded, save for Gloria's occasional mutters. Too close. Bad angle. There, see that shoulder drop, that was his tell. Jace didn't talk, but he listened. It became a routine. After fights, while bruises swelled and adrenaline faded, he'd slip into that cramped office and sit beside her. She'd put on another tape, or sometimes just talk about fighters lost to time, about the good ones who never made it, the corrupt ones who always did. "You watching?" she'd say. And he always nodded even when his eyes were half closed with fatigue. Weeks turned to months, and the underground scene began to shift. Word spread about Orion Vale, not for flair but for precision, for how he didn't waste punches, for how he looked like he could see through his opponent's heartbeat. I seen him before, one older trainer muttered near the locker room, or someone who moved like that. Jace heard the whispers. Let them fester. He didn't correct anyone. But Gloria, she started asking different questions. "You ever fight amateur?" she asked one night, as they patched up a younger fighter who'd lost a tooth. "No," Jace said flatly. She raised an eyebrow. "You ever train amateur?" He didn't answer. "Your hands," she said, wrapping his left wrist gently. "They got the scars of someone who fought under spotlights. That's not cage rust." Still, he stayed silent. But that night, when she brought out a clipping from a 2017 magazine, Rising Star, Jace, the Pulse, Navarro, she didn't show it to him. She just left it on the table beside his coffee. He didn't touch it, didn't look at it, but he never left it behind. Outside the ring, the world had changed. A new generation of fans idolized surface-level stars with massive followings and clean records. The Federation had buried its past scandals under fresh media campaigns and smiling mascots. But online whispers remained. Old clips of Jace's early matches floated through forums and fight breakdown videos. Raina Cruz, the same journalist who once defended him, had been promoted. She ran a small investigative series called The Lost Champions. And in her latest episode, what if Orion Vale isn't new? What if he's the return of a ghost they tried to erase? The video only had a few thousand views, but enough people were watching. Back in Newark, the next cage fight drew more spectators than usual. They weren't regulars. They had nicer phones, cleaner shoes, sports blogs and GoPros. Jace noticed. So did Gloria. She pulled him aside before the fight. "You sure about this?" Her voice wasn't angry, just steady. Sad. "Sure about what?" he replied. She folded her arms. "About being seen." He hesitated, then said, "They already saw me once. Didn't matter." "But they forgot," she said gently. "This time they won't." Jace didn't answer. He just stepped into the cage and did what he always did. Dismantled a man without gloating. Clinical. Fast. Almost elegant. By the end of the week, Raina Cruz had tagged him on social media. A split screen, still one side young Jace mid-hook, the other Orion Vale landing a blow in near-identical form. The caption read, "Coincidence or comeback?" The call came 2 weeks later. An anonymous donor had paid Jace's entrance into an open qualifier tournament, televised, sanctioned with a backdoor path to the national championship. No ID check, no fingerprints, just a name and gloves. He stared at the screen long after Gloria walked past him, mop in hand. "You going?" she asked, not looking back. "I can't," he said. "Then why are your hands shaking?" They trained harder after that. Gloria had kept her husband's old gear pads, timing ropes, heavy bags weighted wrong. Jace used them all. His body ached in places he forgot existed. She adjusted his stance, tightened his hooks, cut the showmanship that once defined him. No more pulse, she said. That name's dead. You're fighting for something else now. What he asked, panting. Remembrance, she said. Not revenge. That's the only thing that lasts. The tournament began on a rainy Thursday. No fanfare, no big names, just raw talent and heavy fists. Orion Vale moved like a ghost. Unbeatable. Untraceable. Each win brought a new suspicion. Cameras lingered longer. Commentators stumbled over his style, trying to name it. And in the back rows of the bleachers, Rainer Cruz sat quietly with a notebook in hand, eyes never leaving him. One night, as Gloria poured tea in the back of the gym, she finally said it aloud. "You're him, aren't you?" Jace didn't move, didn't pretend, didn't deny. She sighed. "You waited too long to stay hidden?" He nodded slowly. "I know." There was a long pause. Then she whispered, "Don't lose. Not because of pride, but because if they take this from you again, they win twice." By the semi-finals, the buzz was no longer underground. Orion Vale's fights had gone viral not because of flashy knockouts, but because of something else. Something eerily familiar. Clips circulated, showing Vale's quiet focus, his economy of movement, his refusal to raise his hands after victory. Side-by-sides compared him to Jace Navarro, the fallen prodigy who disappeared mid-scandal. A young fighter with similar posture, similar scars, even the same twitch in the jaw when cornered. Rainer Cruz's blog exploded. She posted slow-motion breakdowns, overlaid audio from old interviews, and pointed out glove positioning only 2 fighters ever used. "If I'm wrong, I'll take it down. But if I'm right, then this man deserves a second look." At the gym, Gloria watched the video on her phone without comment. Jace came in late, his hoodie damp with rain. She looked up from the screen. "You'll need more than a mouth guard when this blows open." Jace sat on the bench and unlaced his shoes. "I didn't come back to win them over." "No," she said softly. "You came back to finish what they tried to bury." Rainer reached out through back channels. No official requests, just a message forwarded through 3 gyms and 1 mutual contact. "I don't want to expose you. I want to hear your truth before they twist it again." Jace ignored it at first, but the message lingered in his mind like a bruise that wouldn't fade. What was the truth? That he'd tried to speak out and got crushed. That he still dreamed about the Federation president's smirk the night they banned him. That, in the quiet hours, he wondered if maybe they were right, that no one would ever care again. The night before the championship match, Gloria found him in the gym alone. He was sitting in the ring hands taped, staring at nothing. "You nervous?" she asked. He shook his head. "Then why are you dressed to fight a day early?" He looked down, blinked. "I don't know," he whispered. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and find it was all a dream." Gloria walked to the edge of the ring, leaned on the ropes. "You know you don't have to unmask. You could keep it quiet. Win. Walk away." Jace nodded. "But I'm tired of hiding," he said. "I don't want the belt. I want the truth to breathe again, even if it costs me everything." Back at her apartment, Rainer Cruz reviewed her notes. She had everything now: voice matches, leaked footage, even an off-the-record comment from an old Federation judge who admitted Jace had been blacklisted with 0 legal process. Her editor was salivating, but Raina hesitated. She remembered the first time she saw Jace fight, how he didn't just throw punches, he told a story. Each round was a sentence. Each blow was a declaration. He wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to matter. She closed her laptop and murmured, "Don't let them erase you again." The day of the championship arrived under heavy clouds. The arena was sold out. The Federation had tried to downplay Vale's rise. No interviews, no highlights, no hype. But that only made the crowd hungrier. Gloria rode with Jace to the venue in silence. He wore a black hoodie. No name on the back, no entourage. Inside the prep room, a knock came. Rainer Cruz, alone. Gloria started to block the door, but Jace nodded once. "It's okay." Raina stepped in slowly. Her eyes didn't leave his. "I won't publish until you say I can." Jace studied her. "Why do you care?" She smiled, but it was tired. "Because I watched them rewrite you into a villain. And I believed them. I don't want to make that mistake again." He gave the faintest nod. "Then stay ringside. Watch the ending for yourself." The arena lights dimmed. The crowd roared. Two fighters walked into the ring, one with a glimmering robe, a history of sponsorships, and a fan base chanting his name. And the other? In plain black. No music, no banners, just silence. They stood face to face. Orion Vale versus the Federation's favorite. The ref gave instructions neither man needed. Then the bell rang. It was brutal. The Federation's champion was strong, bigger, younger, faster. But Jace had something else. Something that pulsed through his ribs like fire. He dodged, absorbed, struck with a purpose that made the air feel heavier. By round 4, the tide turned. The crowd, once cheering for the favorite, began murmuring, confused, curious. Round 6, Vale landed a perfect combo. The champion stumbled. His coach screamed for defense. Round 7, blood. Vale's lips split, but he smiled. Just for a second. Then came round 9. Jace stood in the corner chest, heaving, vision blurring. He looked to the crowd. And then he reached for the strap behind his headgear. The ref blinked. So did the cameras. Gloria stood hands over her mouth. And in one slow motion, he pulled the headgear off, revealing the unmistakable scar under his left eye, the familiar twist of his jaw, the ghost made flesh. The silence was immediate. Then a woman screamed. Then cheers, then boos, then absolute chaos. Half the stadium erupted in protest, waving Federation flags, throwing cups, shouting curses. The other half, they cried. They chanted. They chanted his name. Jace, Jace, Jace. Backstage officials scrambled. Legal reps swarmed. But it didn't matter. Because on live television in front of millions, the man they tried to erase stood in the ring gloves raised, unbowed. No victory lap, no speech, just one line spoken into a hot mic before he left the ring. I didn't come for your belt. I came for my name. The fallout was immediate. The Federation released a statement within hours, a curt, sterile denial. They claimed no knowledge of Orion Vale's true identity, said Jace Navarro had forged documents to enter the bracket, and declared the championship result under review. But none of that mattered, because the clip had already spread. Millions saw him tear off the headgear. They heard his voice steady, unshaken. They saw the rawness in his eyes. Within a day, hashtags exploded. Remember, Jace, let him fight. The pulse returns. Fan-made highlight reels surfaced. Older boxers came out of retirement to comment. Former Federation employees anonymously confirmed the blacklisting. Fighters who once stayed silent now whispered his name like an apology. Inside the gym, Gloria unplugged the old TV, sat down beside Jace, and handed him her late husband's journal. Thought you'd want to see how a forgotten fighter thinks, she said softly. Jace opened it, pages filled with notes in thick ink, fight patterns, breathing rhythms, philosophies scrawled in margins. One line stopped him. You don't fight for gold. You fight to be remembered with dignity. He closed the book slowly. That was it. But outside, not everyone cheered. The arena had become a battlefield of public opinion. Some saw him as a hero, a man who'd refused to be erased. Others labeled him a fraud, a disgrace, who broke the rules to make a statement. Televised debates lit up the evening news. A retired champion sneered. He had his chance. He blew it. Now he wants redemption without consequences. But on the streets, in gyms, in small towns, among young fighters who saw themselves in him, Jace became something else. A symbol, not of perfection, but of resistance. Raina Cruz's inbox flooded. Fighters, whistleblowers, coaches, people who remembered Jace not as a scandal, but as the kid who offered gloves to rookies after training. The one who asked about health insurance when no one dared to. The one who paid for a teammate's surgery when their check bounced. She compiled every account, every recording, every witness. And she didn't ask for permission this time. The exposé dropped 3 days after the match, erased the quiet banning of Jace Navarro. It hit 1.2 million views in 48 hours. And just like that, the narrative shifted. Jace didn't watch it. He stayed in Newark, still trained, still quiet. But Gloria noticed the difference. He moved with less weight on his shoulders, ate more, slept deeper, even smiled once briefly at a video of a young amateur imitating his footwork in a dusty alley. You seeing this? Gloria asked, holding the phone. He shrugged. She grinned. Kids got your bad habits. He chuckled under his breath. One night, as rain tapped against the gym roof, Gloria approached him with a letter. Thick envelope, no return address, just the Federation seal. He read it silently. They offered a rematch, not for the belt that had been handed controversially to the runner-up, but for something new, a charity exhibition. Televised, neutral venue, a chance to fight, on his terms. He stared at it for a long time, then asked, "Do I need to prove anything else?" "No," Gloria said, "but you could remind them." In the weeks leading up to the fight, the Federation tried to control the narrative. They framed it as a gesture of goodwill, painted themselves as an organization evolving with the times, but everyone knew. This wasn't about evolution, it was about damage control. Still, it was a stage. And this time, they couldn't cut the cameras. The fight was held in a modest venue in Philadelphia. Not a stadium, no fireworks, no corporate banners. But the energy was electric. They fought 6 rounds Jace and a decorated champion from the current roster. A real warrior. Clean record, no politics. And when the final bell rang, both men raised each other's gloves. No judges, no winner announced, only applause. Sustained, sincere. After the match, Raina caught up with him outside the venue. Rain again. Always rain. "You look different," she said. "I feel different." "Like what?" He looked toward the sky. "Like I don't need to be louder than the lie anymore." She smiled. "So? What now?" He slipped on a hoodie. "Now I go teach kids how to fight right." Later that month, back in Newark, a group of young fighters stood in a circle as Jace demonstrated jabs, clean, deliberate, focused. He didn't talk about belts. He talked about breath, balance, listening to your body when the world doesn't. And when one boy asked, "Were you really famous?" he just laughed. Once. But it's better being remembered for what you did when no one was watching. Gloria watched from the doorway, arms crossed, eyes glassy. He caught her glance and gave a small nod. That night, the gym was quiet. He sat alone in the ring tape still on his wrists, breathing slow, not victorious, not erased, just present. Autumn crept into Newark. The gym's old windows fogged with each breath from the fighters training inside. Outside, leaves collected like echoes on the curb. Inside, life went on punch by punch, step by step. Jace had stopped hiding. No more aliases, no more fake IDs, just his name on a clipboard next to Coach. The kids still called him Coach Vale. Some of them knew. Most didn't care. He wasn't the man from YouTube anymore. He was the one who stayed late to fix a broken mitt, who taped ankles before matches, who stood in the back of the bleachers clapping like a proud uncle. But the ripple he made, it didn't stop. In Detroit, a 20-year-old fighter quoted him after winning a regional title. "I fight so no one else gets silenced." In Buenos Aires, a group of female boxers started a foundation named Recuerdo Remembrance to protect whistleblowers in sports. And in a small Tokyo gym, a black and white poster of Jace mid-fight hung next to a shrine of other legends. A candle flickered beneath it. One morning, Gloria walked in holding a newspaper, the old kind, print and ink and folded corners. She dropped it on the bench beside him. Front page Federation. President resigns amid corruption investigation. Jace read it twice, then set it down, nodded once, and went back to wrapping the wrists of a shy teenager getting ready for her first match. Raina Cruz visited the gym unannounced the following week. She didn't bring a camera crew, just a notebook and a coffee. They sat outside on the curb. "You ever gonna write your version?" she asked. "I already did," he said, motioning toward the gym. She tilted her head. "That's not writing." "It's better," he replied. "I gave them the ending I never got." She didn't push, just smiled and asked if she could donate gear. He said yes, then asked if she'd write something else, not about him, but about the kids. Their stories, their fights, their victories. "Tell the truth while it's still small," he said, "before it gets bought." Weeks passed, then months. The Federation remained fractured. The belt he never wanted was still debated online, but fewer people cared. What mattered now wasn't his legacy. It was the kid who learned how to duck, the girl who discovered her own power, the boy who stopped flinching when someone shouted. One evening after a quiet class, Gloria locked up while Jace mopped the floor. The gym was dark, lit only by a buzzing light in the back hallway. She leaned on the ropes, watching him in that empty ring. "You know," she said, "you never told me what it felt like. That moment. When you took the mask off. He stopped mopping, thought for a moment. Like the lights were warm again, he said. Like I could breathe without asking permission. She smiled. You never needed permission. They walked out together into the early night. A soft breeze. The moon peeking out. The city around them quiet, not asleep, just resting. And from a few blocks away, the sound of two kids sparring echoed faintly down the street. In the years that followed, people still remembered Jace Navarro. Not for the belt he didn't win, not for the protest that cost him everything, but for the moment he stood in front of the world, no mask, no sponsor, no apology, and said, I came for my name, and somehow that was enough. What does it mean to reclaim your name after the world tries to erase it? For Jace, it wasn't about revenge or headlines or legacy. It was about standing in the light again as himself, even when the truth wasn't welcome. Maybe we all carry something like that, a name, a truth, a fight worth remembering. What's yours? If this story stayed with you, I'd love to hear what part hit home. Share your thoughts in the comments, or just tell us about a time you had to stand alone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next story. Thanks for staying till the end. See you in the next one.